Everyone, welcome back to
Hi,
Easy Conversations.
and this is going to be an easy one because I'm here with Chris.
Every time, it's good.
I'm glad the hosts don't change. I don't have to think that things are not going to work out. So, um,
Yeah, it does make it easy.
yeah, and I don't feel like I have to super prepare myself because I know you're going to have some super insightful thing to say that's going to help get it out of me or vice versa. So,
Awesome. So let's start with the topic.
right. So today's topic is trusting your intuition. And the reason I wanted to talk about this because I had a situation happen last week where I got a call to participate on a podcast, and like it was a bizarre thing. Like I don't even know how they got a hold of me. Like they maybe found me on Facebook or something, but I was in a phase of saying yes to everything. So I said yes. And so I attended this 6 or 7 minute podcast in New York, and it was so like short, like it didn't feel like you could go into any depth on anything. And then I got a call back later that day from an executive at this podcast company in New York, and they said how great I tested on their internal ratings, and they had 6 people reach out and want to get in contact with me, and had I been contacted, and I'm like, no, I hadn't. And anyway, so he was giving me all sorts of compliments on my ability to speak, and did I have any practice, and like where did I get my public speaking acumen, whatever. And it all sounded quite nice. And then he started offering me a deal where I could buy exposure on their platform. I could get these half-hour podcasts that would be rebroadcast throughout the year. And everything in theory logically made sense and was tempting to a degree, but I wasn't quite there. Like it felt a little off. I'm like, it was a 6 minute conversation that wasn't very deep. What did they really learn about me that was so inspiring that they had to have me come on and to do another I think 6 of these shows, but for 30 minutes long, with a big wig host or hostess, someone people who are in the TV and podcasting game. So it just felt a little weird. So logically, yes, this makes sense. I want more exposure. I want more clients. This sounds like something that could be a good idea, but I didn't feel necessarily 100% on board with that. It was also the day after my second COVID vaccination.
Yeah.
So I felt a little kind of tired and loopy and not quite on as well. So when I expressed my, like, I'm not quite sure I'm on board right now. Like I don't have a clear head. I don't think now's the right time to make a good decision. Let me think about it. But he kept pressing, and I started feeling more and more off about the press, which to me is a sign that this isn't the right thing. Like it's
Yeah.
not the right thing for me. It's not the right thing for me to do because it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I'm often telling my clients that you need to trust your gut. You have to follow your kind of internal compass, and that's the way that you feel. That's your emotions. That's how you make good decisions.
Yeah, right
And,
or wrong,
right.
following that, what you're feeling in the moment is completely,
Right.
yeah.
And not being pressed to make a decision on the spot. Um, Likewise, I mean, in converse to that, but a month or two before that, I ended up being on a call with someone where they were selling me their program, and I didn't even have to be pitched to know that I needed it and wanted it.
Yeah.
And
And
logically,
ultimately, I know that program was hugely beneficial for you.
right, and the logical part of me was like, no, it's too much money. I don't think it makes sense right now. I can't really afford to do that kind of thing. Like it didn't logically make sense, but internally it made a ton of, like, it felt like I needed to do it.
Yeah.
So if you can learn how to tune into that, like kind of going with the flow, the ease of the ease of things, and the trusting that you'll know what to do when to do it. And if you have to reason and logically put it out there, like it doesn't flow the same.
Yeah. I've had some similar experiences, but I've also had some that are almost the opposite, where when I've applied the logic, it has actually worked out, because I think what has occurred is that I've combined the two. And one of the things that immediately jumped into my head when you suggested this topic, and I think your story is so good to capture this, is we immediately assume that we can trust our intuition. But like anything, we have to know, like, and then move to trust. And if we don't know our intuition, if we don't know what that feels like, if we don't know how to recognize it, if we don't know what we want, or what we like, or what makes us feel comfortable, we often don't know that that's our intuition kind of giving us some guidance. And then we have to know that to learn to like that feeling. Because I've often seen people will go, oh, I don't know if that's really the right thing, but this person's really asked me, so I really have to do what they've asked me, because I need to please them, and I need to do more, and I need to get more exposure. And so they tend to not respond to liking themselves and liking their own uncomfortable, awkward feel. And
I'm
so
gonna
when
need
you
more.
can,
I'm gonna need more.
okay,
Can you
so
give me an
that
example of that one?
so that awkward feel that you described, about it just didn't sit right, and yet you were being I appealed, your logic was being appealed to. Might have been an easy dollar amount to get access to this. The platform is a good fit for you, all of those sorts of things. And so it could have been really easy for you to go, oh yeah, that feels like something I would like. Instead, what you did is you went, oh, that awkward feel, can learn to like that awkward feel, to know that that's guiding me. And I often see people don't sit nicely with the awkward, with the not feeling right. They'll go ahead and do it anyway, based on what everyone else is doing, or what's expected, or what I should be doing more of, instead of trusting, going back in and liking that awkward feel, because we don't like awkward feels.
No, true. What's coming to mind is, like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. Like like
Yeah.
I wasn't on board from a head, heart, and gut kind of place. Like, it was like, logically this appeals to me. Yes, I'm going to get exposure to millions of potential people. Okay, great. And that may lead to more clients. Whatever. Like logically, that stuff made sense.
Yeah.
What didn't sit right was how well I tested internally within their company. I got a 9.8 out of 10, or like, I don't know, where does that come from?
What is that
They did a
anyway?
poll. They did a poll 20 minutes after I did it, and yeah, he's good. Like, what? Like, some of it just didn't quite jive for me.
And
And
I think your head, heart, and gut, I think that's almost the know, like, and trust as well. And we just forget. I hear the know, like, and trust when we meet others and we engage with others, and whether we purchase a program, we have to know, like, and trust them before we work with them. But we forget sometimes to know, like, and trust ourselves in making those kind of decisions. We know, like, and trust outside of ourselves, but we forget to know, like, and trust that connection.
yeah, and ultimately, I think you have the best decisions for you inside of you, right? It doesn't have to
Yes.
come. It doesn't have to come externally. If you
No,
resonate
but
with it, great. But if you
yeah.
don't, it's a clear indication to me that it's not the right path.
One of those really interesting examples of where my intuition just took over was I was at a networking event about, I'm going to go 8 years ago, and there was somebody speaking. He was a coach, and he came with a bit of cred, and I kind of liked him. Yeah, a little bit of cred, and he had a program at the end of it that was going to be more of a group program thing. And I found myself picking up the form that had been handed out and just writing in my credit card details before I even realized what I was doing.
Mm.
And I went along to that group coaching. There was probably 5 of us in the room, and it was actually the seed that started one of my current programs that everybody just soaks up. It's called Unlock Your Power, but that was the seed that created that particular program. I had no idea that that's what would come out of that signing up for this group coaching.
You really didn't catch yourself until you were giving out your credit card information.
Yep. And that scared me because I'm actually used to knowing a bit more. I want to know stuff. I want to know what the outcome will be. I want to know what that'll look like. I want to know stuff. And then I'll decide if I like it.
And I agree with you. But that's when I did that Fearless Communicator course, I didn't actually know the outcome that I was going to get. I didn't even ask a bunch of those questions. And I'm like, what are you doing, brain? Like, ask those questions. And I had already signed up. I trusted implicitly how I felt, and that it just felt like it was the right thing I needed to do.
Yes. Now, I've also said before that I've felt it obvious, opposite to this. So I've actually gone completely with the logical, and it's actually turned out really well. So when I was back before COVID, I flew over to Kuwait for a week. I was picked up at the airport. So I had all this documentation, but when you arrive into a foreign country, like anywhere pretty much in the Middle East, maybe apart from Dubai, because that seems to be much more able to deal with English speaking people. But when I arrived at the Kuwait airport, I was promised that someone would meet me at the gate when I got off the plane, which did happen. But I had to apply a whole lot of logic. I made sure that I had my paperwork and I had the phone number of who I could call, and I relied on all of that to allow me to get through that airport and get through the visa sections and all of that, all on logic, nothing on intuition, because I just had to trust the process, because my intuitive nature would have said, don't get off the bloody plane. What are you doing? Because I didn't know what I was walking into.
Right.
I just had to trust blindly that it was all through my actions, were all the logical actions. I'd made sure I got all the right paperwork done. I'd done all of these logical things. And that is what got me through that airport and then into the city of Kuwait, which was lovely. And quite honestly, that city is amazing. And one day I'll get to go back there. But there was this, because there was a whole lot of fear attached.
Right.
And so that fear would often drive intuitive decisions.
I think that's what gets in a lot of people's way, is that fear. Like, what am I really tapping into? Is it the fear, or is it my gut? Like, is it something I should be following, or is it something I'm fearful of? Just
and if I'd paid attention to that intuitive feel, it would have been yeah, I just had to push that aside and just go, trust the logical process.
So do you think that was your intuition saying trust, or or was it the fear? Like, which because I think that they can feel the same. Like if somebody asks me to do a public speaking thing, I'm going to go, yeah, that's a great idea. And then I'm going to go, oh, what are you doing? That does not feel good. I'm like that. I'm petrified of that part of it. But oftentimes I'll know if it's the right thing for me, even though it feels awkward. So trying to distinguish the difference between that fear
Yep.
and anticipation, like which.
Yeah, where does that sit? It's a really good question. I think in different circumstances, it can sit in different places. And so I really liked your example of the head, heart, and the gut, because I think the know, like, and trust really sits there.
Mm.
And the fear can come in with the fear of not
Know,
knowing.
like, trust.
Yep.
That's kind of cool.
And the fear could also sit in the like. Do I like walking into a foreign country where I'm not speaking the language that everyone,
that might be uncomfortable.
See? So even in my example, where did the fear sit? It actually sat in all three places. Mm. And so I just had to go back to logic because there was less emotion in there. And the rest of the emotions were a little overpowering. So I actually relied on logic to get me through getting off the plane, finding the person that was holding up my name. and you know, just walking through the airport. I don't know if you've ever experienced where you walk through an airport and you don't know what's going on in the airport because someone's just walking you through it. Where I've been to airports on my own, where Sydney or even Singapore, you know, it's a pretty big airport. You get there and you kind of have to navigate your own way around there. And so I remember going to Dubai, and then 6 years later, I was back in Dubai, and I kind of went, oh yeah, I remember that store there. And I remember that cafe was there. And so I kind of went, yeah, I've been here before. But the one in Kuwait, if you flew me back there now, I'd go, I don't recognize it. Because I just had to, I didn't trust, I wasn't using my intuition to get me through the airport. I was using someone else, I was using the logic and the process.
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, so sometimes I think you can actually just go, well, intuition is, you know, and I use intuition a lot, but that was just an extreme circumstance where I actually relied on the logic more.
I think part of the reason I wanted to share this is because we have like our beliefs get colored by our experiences as a kid, right? So we grow up, and I always refer to this as a contact lens, and that our contact lens is how we see life, right? So if you hold it away from your eye, you see the color, you see the thickness, you see the distortion, and that is actually built up based on our experiences of life, like the way we were raised as parents, our way our parents raised us, the cultural way we were
influences,
we were influenced, the experiences we had growing up, and some of those, because we've adopted those from our parents, they don't necessarily serve us today. So when that contact lens is up against your eye, you don't necessarily distinguish between what's your true belief and what was the belief that your parents gave you. So if they had fear around money, I don't know how I adopted that one, but I totally did. So a fear of lack of money, well, anytime somebody offers me something that's going to cost me money, there's an immediate instinctual like
lens that goes, oh, hang on, what do I do with that?
I can't trust you. Like, it's too much money. Like, what's wrong with it? Like, all that stuff kind of pops up. And sometimes I need that to be able to pull that back and see from a different perspective what this could be or how this could be. So it's just kind of like an immediate reaction based on how I've seen things throughout my life. So
yeah,
if I can be of service to anybody who's struggling with that, that's one of the things I like to do, is to be able to provide that perspective. So you get out of your head, you can maybe put those beliefs aside for now to figure out what works best for you now.
Yeah, and there's the other thought that occurred to me around trusting your intuition is one of the other things I've discovered when when that head, heart, and gut are actually working well together, and I'm not in an extreme environment that seems to shoot me off in one direction, is that when all of those three are actually working well together, I actually don't feel a lot of emotion because none of them are actually speaking louder than the other. And so there's this, it's almost like a blankness. There's no actual emotional attachment.
Yeah.
So that lens that you're talking about doesn't seem to be there. But I also don't feel a great drive towards it. I just go, yes, that's the thing. Okay, that's the thing. And that can feel strange as well when you're not used to knowing that that's that real connection between the three, getting that feeling of almost nothing. I was talking with someone yesterday and they're so used to living in the high or the low, that feeling that middle ground, that nothingness was really a bit new for them. And then I got your message about what we were going to chat about today. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. Because that nothingness feel of just not being, and I'm not meaning that it's nothing, but it's just not an emotional attachment, right, or an emotional reactiveness.
Right. Because
actually is when I trust it.
And that makes total sense, because when you are feeling any kind of negative or positive emotion, generally it's because you have an attachment to it, right? So, and maybe not knowing, especially with something new, maybe that's why there's no attachment. But if you've had a bad experience that, let's say it was public speaking and I peed my pants, okay? So I would have an attachment with that never happened. I'm just using it because it sounds funny. But if I did that, yes, I'm going to have a negative feel the next time somebody asks me to speak because, oh, that didn't feel good before and I don't want to look like an idiot, right? So I think, and that can happen on the positive ends of things as well, where you get really excited about something because you had a good experience with it before and then potentially get let down afterwards.
That's right, because you've got this expectation that it's going to be this great thing, because every program you ever sign up for is going to be great, and then it's not always the case. Yeah. So getting that non-attachment feel is something that I look for when, and I do it on more of a micro level these days. I'm putting a new program together at the moment, and I'm going through some of the logical steps, e.g., articulated the purpose and the vision and all of that stuff, treating it like a little mini business. And then I've got tasks that need to occur, and then I've got dates. I allocated the dates to when those tasks need to occur. When I get to that item on my calendar in 2 weeks' time, when that first task needs to be looked at, I'll actually be following my intuition on that, about whether that has to be done that day or not. Mm. Because if I've got, oh my God, that's really, really hard, and I just can't look at it, then I won't do it that day. Rightly or wrongly, I just will wait until there's almost no care factor, so that I can go and do that task without worrying about the outcome, or who said it had to be done on Tuesday next week. Maybe it's Thursday next week that I've got to do it.
Well, that's a self-imposed deadline, right? So you have more wiggle room. It's funny because I was waffling between this topic and going with the flow as a topic, because sometimes it doesn't feel right to go ahead and do a certain project and you don't know why it is, or a task. And usually it's because there's something else that needs to have happened for you to feel okay, or to be ready to do it, or for an invitation for somebody else to offer part of that assistance, whatever it is, right? Yep. So I think we spend a lot of time paddling upstream when we could be going downstream, and kind of let the water do the work for us.
And I think that's your intuition that you can make conscious use of.
Right. Is this too hard? Am I pushing a rock uphill right now? Or should I be on top of the rock?
Yeah. and let other things help push that rock up. Yeah. And that's, so that's something that I think over the last, let's say 5 or 6 years, I've learnt to apply deliberately my intuition to more of those smaller activities rather than just trusting it in, oh, should I be walking down that side of the street or this side of the street? Or should I be signing up to this thing or that thing? Like that seems much bigger decisions and bigger impacts on my business life or my personal life, where you're right. If I'm designing a program, it's a self-imposed timeline. And I actually have to make sure that I deliberately apply it there. Because this, even if it's self-imposed timeline, I don't want that to influence the timing of when something will be right.
Exactly.
Yep. Which allows flow to be just inflow and not even a question.
I think a lot of people struggle with that. They think they got to be doing, right, all the time, because that's how we get stuff done, right? So I use this example all the time. I built a garden box out here several years ago, and I was like, oh, where do I want to build this? Okay, I want to build it there. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I better order some dirt. So I got dirt and I piled it all off in this one corner, and then I had to move the dirt to put in the wood and all this stuff. Like I was putting obstacles in my way the entire time. If I had just let things happen and like in its own best timing, it would have worked out and probably come together a lot easier than I could have ever planned. And actually part of that garden box, I remember thinking, yeah, you know what? I want another section right there. I think it would be really nice. But I don't have time for it right now. I'll let it be. And one weekend I saw my father-in-law out there building it because he knew that I wanted one, but he had some spare wood and he just started putting it together. I didn't have to do anything. It was done for me. So it was like another indication that, you don't always have to be pushing to get something done. It can happen in its own due course and with a lot less effort if you go with the flow.
Completely. Yes. You're right. I see people struggle with that a lot. It is, I think it's a daily challenge. I struggle with it. I get on my to-do list because I have a lovely long to-do list, and I like my to-do list because I particularly like ticking them off. I like go, yep, that bit's done, that bit's done, that bit's done. But I kind of look at that list at the beginning of every day and go, oh, will I do that first or this first or that? I'll change the priority of things. And sometimes that can be very mentally dictated, because I go, oh yeah, that's important because that person was needing to get that. Or sometimes I go, you know what, that's okay. I've got a window now. What if I just go and, for example, this morning, my daughter is cleaning out one of our rooms, well, sort of her room, study-ish. She goes back to university on Monday, so she kind of wants it all cleaned out. And I needed to spend a bit of time in helping her sort through what was where and where are we going to take things out of and what space she will now have. And so instead of getting through all my admin stuff before getting on this call with you, I just went and spent time with her. Mm-hmm. And we get in our own way when we think we have to always adjust to the list the way that it is or the priorities that we've set. And instead of being able to go, this is the moment.
Go with the flow.
Hooking into intuition.
There you go.